Hello and welcome to part 2 of all of the glorious madness of this. The camera just stopped recording for some reason, so I have to do it in 2 parts right now. Wonderful. So, final battle-y stuff. That's how you basically run it, and you have Karak. Once Karak dies, because even if Blacktail, is killed first, Karak has fallen into darkness enough, and he's realised his own ambitions enough. There was a question mark started to be painted here by the degree that the player really took this on so much so, of like, Jesus, how much of this is actually Blacktail's doing anymore? And how much of this is just Karak, because this is kind of, so with Blacktail dead, Karak would probably continue, like a moment of, okay, that feels strange. Whoa. But anyway, I'm a shit now, so hey, have it. Or I'll give you one more chance, basically, Tanador. You're almost broken and beaten. Blah, blah. But yeah, as soon as Karak is killed, the curse of Leoric kicks in. And he effectively manifests the exterior form of the Skeleton King. So it's not that his skin strips away and he becomes a skeleton. He basically just manifests this form, and like the soul power of that takes over, and he sort of becomes that as an outer shell. It sort of like cakes onto him, and it would crack away if that form is then destroyed. So he'd be fighting then in his second form with all the powers of the Skeleton King. And then if that were to have been killed, then the designation of his soul would go to Hasta. Because remember the thing that I told you about with in Freeport, and they did the ritual to Hasta, and because of that, he, right in front of their eyes, would begin to change into an agent of Hasta. And that's his final fate, effectively. Robbed of death, a permanent agent of Hasta in complete madness. And right before their eyes, he would turn into Squire. Even if Squire's standing right next to him. Now, you might be thinking, what the heck? But remember, Squire was always seen to be wearing a crown, right? So you need a crown. It's amazing how it worked out, isn't it? I didn't push that. I didn't push the player to put the crown on or any of that. It's amazing how it worked out. And it's such a shame, such a travesty that players within the group didn't want to run that final session. And for me, it kind of makes me feel dubious about going forward with anything, especially when the same player, to rub salt further into it, has said, after enough time has passed, let's not play Star Wars mechanics. What about something like the age system that's nice and simple? But we've stopped playing the age system because you were getting pissed off with it. That's my stare of what the fuckness. Yeah. So Tanador has basically said, I'm not dealing with it. I'm not facing my friend. Turns his back on the army, walks away, pulls a Bruce Banner and just, Tannador just want to be left alone. Walks off into the mountains with his pet. Walks out on the army. Says, I'm not going to fight Karak. I've had it. And the army's got no leader again. And they say, well, we can't go in. We're not going to be able to succeed the confrontation. They back down, and then their will is crushed, subjugated by Redhold. And of course, the Wardens, they have to pull back and try and deal with Darkspawn. And it's in Redhold's interest to let them, because they're heading up towards them through the Frostbacks. So, and Amelia, well, she was going to move against Karak, so she can't exactly hang around either. So she has to get out of there and try to get in touch with Lady Baranti overseas and abandon Denerim itself. Basically try and take up residence over at Freeport there, where Lady Baranti will, fund her, basically, as a sort of Game of Thrones Brienne type character. But sort of in a misappropriated alliance, they're working for technically the bad guy. Lady Baranti would work well in Game of Thrones. So, yeah, by the player not wanting to do it, and the reason that the player didn't want to do it, I might add, I can talk about this to some extent, because it's not a betrayal of privacy, because I'm not sort of saying who the player is and you don't know the player, and it's that sort of thing. It's more that I know that you guys, you want to hear the dynamics of the group, and you want the updates, and you're interested in my experience of gaming. So that's the reason that I explain these things. Never sort of like to moan and get things off my chest sense. I feel like I owe it to you all. You're expecting an update, and you're expecting sort of reasons for things when things are sort of apparent, rather than just sort of hinting at them and just leaving them there. You kind of need to know it, don't you? So, yeah. A real grave shame that we couldn't actually run that. But, of course, Redhold wins. And they conquer the Frostback Mountains, and there's no one to stop them anymore. Nimdairana's had to turn his back on it. And, of course, the thing I didn't explain earlier was that the group were always going to have one lifeline, where he was going to try and save them. There was always the plan that he could come in dragon form and get them out of one, serious problem. And right from the very beginning, when they're like level 1 or whatever, I put them in, I give them an archdemon basically in front of them, and they decide to get into combat with it. Now that was intentional. So I give them a lifeline. I say, you get one sort of out on this, and don't tell them. He will jump in and save you once, basically. And then I give them something that is basically an idiot check. That is potentially so dangerous that it would absolutely wipe them out, the Archdemon at level 1. Them at level 1. They'd be stupid to get it engaged with them, and of course they engaged it. And of course the White Dragon had to turn up and save their asses. So we had Nimdairana in dragon form fighting the freaking Archdemon, taking wounds from that battle, and then he's all scarred up and stuff. And he was so injured from that battle that he had to change back into his elf form and try to heal. But if he were to change back into the dragon form, he would die. He'd be able to fight as a dragon for a bit and then die. So he had to decide at this point, well, I've already had to become a dragon just to save you lot, because you're the intended ones, and then you're not even going to be the ones that are going to help. Oh my God, I've just done that to save you for nothing. And then, you know, even if you changed your minds now, I'd have to turn into a dragon again to save you if it came about, and I'd be absolutely guaranteeing my own death to save you. It would have to be a damn good reason for it. And of course, this group has all been about themselves. So, in some respects, they kind of probably made an enemy of Nimde Rana. Now, how far he'd want to take that, I don't know. But, technically, if he was spiteful enough, he could go full dragon form and say, basically, have the power of an archdemon unleashed on you in the middle of everything else that you can now undertake, because I'm pissed. Yeah. So that was that back there, and kind of, I suppose it was indicative of how the rest of the campaign was going to go, wasn't it? But Thanatos walked away, and Redhold have supreme and complete power. So, what? Oh yes, and if Karak does get killed, then he's squire, yet two squires exist at the same time now. That's bad news. How's that going to be dealt with? And why is there a second squire? And why do they look exactly alike? Now, those are questions which I do have absolute answers to. But I don't think I want to answer them in the space of this video. I feel maybe my own fiction coming on. Maybe develop some of these ideas into it, and then with the chance of letting you sort of read about it at some later time, and you saying, hey, that squire, even though this is a different situation, sort of, I can see that squire, and I'm going to actually find out what makes that thing, why there's two here, and, oh, okay, I see what you've done. You've used the best comparison and changed it because it's, for whatever world thing. I'd really quite like to write fiction and do something like that and use some of these ideas, because then it's even if it was a bit sort of like their Fated Travels, so some of the ideas maybe GM for a party or whatever, and then get some like organic, natural feedback and start using some of those characters in it and things like that. And it's funny because it's not just TFT that's done it, but a book series that I've just started reading, Malazan by Stephen Erickson, is kind of the same conceptual beginnings, all coming from RPG. Will warn you just quickly, provisionally, if you do try to start that, the first book in the series, Gardens of the Moon, it's very, very complex read. You really have to have your head switched on, and Erickson is annoyingly, purposely obtuse in his writing style. It isn't just about concentrate and that'll be fine. There is stuff there that no matter how hard you concentrate is going to be completely lost on you, and he's got this annoying habit basically of introducing so many characters and absolutely overwhelming you. Once you're right into the book, you'll just have so many characters being flung at you, and then even all the way to the end there'll be more and more, and then you'll start to forget, and you'll be like, who was that again, and what's their relation to this? And you've really got to like backtrack and use the Malazan wiki and use that like the bit at the beginning of the book that says who all the you'll keep on like having a recheck and all the connections. It's madness. So it all goes a bit sort of war and peace in that way. And there's like 9 books to this as well. So I've read the first one of that. But anyway, RPGs that can be made into books and such. So I think I would quite like to explore Squire in more detail in a fiction at some point. But if you want to have your people try and deal with the threat in the mountains with Karak, then go ahead and let me know how it worked out, whether you were able to take basically the entire subjugated Frostback Mountains now, with the tribes being brought into line, all under one ruler, the Emperor of the Mountains, essentially. Blacktail or not, then heck, let me know. But right now, the world has been left in this state where Amelia has just had to run for it, and the others, well, they may well have joined Redhold. Any of the other sort of side characters that weren't in the Alluvion may have sided up, or may have just gone their own paths. Tanador, never to be seen again. Disappeared, walked off into the mountains, never seen again. So you could see kind of a setup there for a sequel. If the time ever did come where I was going to run Dragon Age again, maybe I would run it in the Inquisition time period and say, do you know what, this is possibly going to have to be something that the Inquisitor's going to have to deal with. And, the Frostback Mountains aren't quite the Frostback Mountains from Dragon Age Inquisition, because there is the extra provision that Redhold kind of has this hold on everything still, and you're only allowed to be here if Redhold says so, and so on and so on. Or, heck, all of this can't happen unless Redhold say so. And just imagine, actually, how, kind of spoiler to Dragon Age Inquisition, but the first HQ, I won't go into too much detail, how the end of the first HQ occurs, you not being in the first HQ anymore, right, in Inquisition, and who comes and how that happens, yeah? How that would be handled if Redhold still, owned the mountains. Isn't that interesting as a thought? How would you do that if you know Inquisition and you know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Could you try and deal with Karak first? Would you have the power at that point yet? You're not an Inquisitor. And the other forces certainly don't have the power, because he's kind of up there. You need full hero scale party power to take that down. He's a raid boss at this point now, in WoW terms. That's what he's ascended to. So, yeah. Anyhow, I think it would be a sort of come back and deal with it now as an even bigger threat, so that players kind of become these legacy NPCs. So maybe Amelia is someone that you can consult at the very least with, or do something else with. And maybe at some other point down the line, if I was to have an Inquisitor and do something, they could try and deal with it. But that's where our world holds. Karak is still being controlled by Blacktail, and the bad guys won. Go figure, right? Because everyone accepted that, basically, that we weren't going to do it. No one pushed for it or fought back for it, and so it was had to end organically from non-action, basically. It's a funny thing, isn't it, to see the bad guys win? But, what is win? It's subjective to a given time frame, isn't it? The time frame we're in right now, if things moved forward into Inquisition, and then an Inquisitor comes along and stomps Karak, was that actually win back there? It's it's a momentary thing, isn't it? All victory, all appearance of victory and good luck is transitory. You know, you have to keep that up, and there's going to be things that bring that down and challenge that with time. So, okay, the end of this book, if you like, is with evil, essentially, having become victorious. Blacktail having beaten the group. That's kind of the legacy, the end of it. Blacktail wins. He's beat you. Beat you all. It's as good as an end as any, really, I suppose. So, you know, Blacktail is the ruler of a massive empire now of Avars and controlling Karak. And we'll see how that goes. I'd like to maybe come back and touch upon it and do something with it somewhere. And we'll see how that feels with time. But until next time, I'll see you at the table.